Who is under pressure? We take a look at the Bills and Sabres in their offseason to see who is on the hotter seat. All of this and more on this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. All right, let's go. We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Callie. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. And Dom miming me over there because, it's the same intro. I'm going to change it. I'm sick of the slander. But anyway,
okay.
We're back. How are you feeling? I mean, we're in the off season.
June now.
June.
A couple weeks away from summer.
Yeah.
Technically.
The summer solstice. No, it's not an equinox. That's only autumnal and spring. But
yeah, I didn't really
solstice.
Didn't score very high on the earth science exams, did you?
I actually did. That was probably my better Regents exam, I would say. But anyway, we're in the midst of the off season for both the Bills and Sabres, and there's not a lot to talk about. Not a lot of news. Von Miller spoke yesterday, just forgettable, if you ask me. I really don't care about anything he had
Bobby
to say.
Babbage spoke yesterday.
Babbage spoke.
That is interesting.
That's interesting because
like
he's the new defensive coordinator. He's not a washed up. He's still going to be a Hall of Famer, Von Miller, but he's coming off that ACL injury. He's got to prove himself. He took the pay cut. We'll see if he sticks around.
I guess the most important thing, just to touch on, as unforgettable as that press conference was, it was important that he did say he's out the knee brace.
Yes.
So I think that's a step that,
yeah,
him not having to go on a knee brace anymore is something that's going to be important.
Yeah,
because last year he couldn't get out of the knee brace, and it's a mental hurdle.
He said it was hindering him too, like the ability to cut and things like that. It was hindering his mobility, but. This isn't a Von Miller pod. If you can tell by the title, Under Pressure, in the intro, we're going to go through the Bills and Sabres here in the offseason, total offseason pod today. Who is under the most pressure going into this next season? Who's on the hot seat? Who might not be? Who's on a throne of ice? We don't know.
A throne of ice.
Stanley Cup or Lombardi Trophy? What are we feeling? Who's got to win? Who's got to win it all? Will Lindy bring the vibes back? Who knows? What do you think? Where do you want to start? Where do you think is the best starting point for this?
I think it's very easy to start with just comparing the two teams and where they are.
Okay.
So,
and for those of you out there, we're not comparing hockey and football. We know that's a moot comparison. But
I'll give a better example because I was going to say who's under more pressure: the Bills for the season, upcoming season, the Bills to win the Super Bowl, or the Sabres to just make the playoffs.
Okay.
I'll hold it down a tad.
Okay.
Because I think that answer is very obvious that it's the Sabres make the playoffs. Because the Bills if you would have said this question last year, I think I might have said the Bills, because they kind of loaded up on all this veteran experience, one last ride with this group kind of thing.
Yeah.
You
knew the vibe.
And that was kind of like, if they don't win this next year, then
they got to retool.
So this is kind of a retooling year. So I think that's an easy question to say, especially how the Sabres season went last year as well, how trash it went. So I'll change it a little bit to say the Sabres to make the playoffs, or the Bills, let's just say let's just say hypothetically,
get over the hump.
They play the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Yeah.
To beat the Chiefs. If they lose again, either you pick the Sabres and they make the playoffs, or the Bills and they beat the Chiefs, or
vice versa.
I screwed that up.
No, I understand what you're saying. I get it. The Bills.
One thing will happen if you don't pick the other one. Pretty much. And
Hypothetically,
pressure?
The Bills meet up with the Chiefs in the playoffs. Say in the AFC Championship, they get over the hump. Whatever. I get what you're saying. Who's under most pressure to do that? I'd say it's still the Sabres to make the playoffs.
I would agree. I don't think there's a.
I don't think you can go the other way.
That's what I'm saying.
I really don't.
Not this year. Last year, I think you can make a compelling case for both sides of the argument last year, because again, the Bills are kind of going all in.
Yeah.
And the Sabres kind of had this up-and-coming season, and now it was like, oh my God, the Sabres missed the playoffs. Like, that would be terrible. Like, they're under pressure. But now it seems it's like the Sabres as a team are just under the most pressure, because if they don't get it done this year, then it's kind of when, and what's going to happen with the organization. And we've already seen the Bills last year kind of have a down-ish season.
Yeah. Yeah, they were 500
6
in
and
the middle
6.
of the season. Yeah,
and
5-5, and then 6-6.
Yeah, so then we've already kind of seen that those guys like McDermott and Bean weren't like, oh my god, they crapped the bed the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Like they weren't going to get axed.
No.
So
I
that-
mean,
that's
did
what I'm saying.
we call for one of them to get axed? Maybe we were on that train. But by the end of the season, we said he was on the throne of ice. He was. I mean,
Yeah.
the seat's just it's the car warmer. You're on level 1.
He's the
That's
ice
it.
wizard in Adventure Time.
Ice King.
Ice King.
I never even watched that show, and I knew that. Did you watch that?
I can't
That's sad.
mess that. Well,
It's tough.
that's a tough mess up.
But no,
over there.
either or. It's.
I was
whatever
always a
happens.
regular show kind of guy, so
Yeah.
you know.
What are you gonna do? But yeah, no, you're right.
Ice
McDermott.
wizard.
McDermott, we had the calls for. We got to the point where we were okay with it because they turned the season around after they made a change at offensive coordinator. He wasn't Kenough,
Okay.
Throwing back to the Barbie movie there when that
But
was out.
I will say this though: the addition of Babbage, he just seems to bring that kind of energy. Brady kind of brings that energy. So
they both bring a young energy to the team, which
a
is
vibe.
good. Yeah, for a young team.
the return of the vibes. I love that saying.
Return of the vibes. What was it? Episode XVIII or something like that?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I don't know. It's in the hundreds, Roman numerals. I
But-
had to do some math on that.
Going now from more of a team base, I guess we'll go management. Who do you think's under more pressure this season? Kevin Adams or Brandon Bean? I think it's easily to say Kevin Adams.
It's Kevin Adams. Brandon Bean went through the draft, got Keon Coleman. Yeah, like he's on the warmer seat, I guess, because it wasn't the wide receiver train many people wanted, but he got serviceable players in most of the positions they needed. So I'm fine with it. I think Kevin Adams has a lot to prove this season. If this coaching change doesn't get it done, he's
fired.
Yeah, he's done. He's gone.
Yeah, I think that's another easy kind of answer. All right,
Yeah.
next one, I guess, because I mean, there's really no debating that.
No,
there's
the
no way,
first two have been
there's
Sabres,
no,
and there's no chance for the Bills.
And there's no way you could really. I mean, I tried to twist the team one and end up making it a little bit more like if the Bills lost for the fourth time. I mean, you could think about that. And Brandon Bean, I mean, I just don't think he's going to get fired regardless of what happens this season.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin Adams, there's probably above 50% chance scenario that he gets
If they don't
fired.
make the playoffs and they fall flat,
Well, sure, and they're
he's
probably
gone.
they're probably not a favorite to make the playoffs. Probably
No.
they're probably like a 45-40%.
Lindy Ruff
chance.
does not make you a favorite to make the playoffs.
So if they don't make the playoffs, they're 50-55% chance. And also, there's probably a little bit more of that because if they blow in the beginning of the year, like he might get fired in the season.
Yeah.
So I
Can
guess
you imagine a mid-season GM change? I
Yeah.
mean, it happens probably more frequently than not. But
I don't
it's
know
just interesting.
how often it happens. It's more of interim, and then they kind of get through the season. But yeah, I mean, it's not unlikely.
Yeah.
But, hopefully that doesn't happen. But going to the coaches now, Lindy Ruff or Sean McDermott. I feel like this one's pretty easy, but I also think there's an underrated case for Lindy as well.
There is an underrated case for Lindy, but it's McDermott.
I think McDermott too, but I
McDermott's just got the years.
too.
Lindy's got a 2-year deal.
I think there's an underrated case for Lindy. Not that they would fire him after one season, but he's only signed for 2 years, and Abbott seems to be the guy in motion. Now, Grant, again, if they fail this season, Abbott's buddy Adams is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. There's not that much pressure, but I think there is pressure to kind of, for him personally, I mean, he's top 5 all time in wins. Never won the Stanley Cup.
And he's back with the team.
Hasn't been to the Stanley Cup final since 1999, so it's been 25 years.
Feels like he's been ripe for this opportunity
He's
of living in Clarence in the offseason.
Well, he's kind of like, I guess if you want to compare the coaches, they're similar. Like Sean McDermott and Lindy Ruff are both kind of guys that went along the regular season.
Make it to the playoffs, but they don't
They
make
make
it
it
all
to
the
the
way.
playoffs. They could win a series or two, but they're kind of are they enough of a gamer to win those series and win those playoff games? So they're very similar in that aspect. But for me, I think I still lean Sean McDermott because I don't think McDermott's gonna get fired regardless of what happens this season.
Even if another article
pound on the
comes out
table,
and blasts him.
I just don't think he's gonna. Yeah, he's not gonna get fired. But I do think there's a scenario where, the fans are already kind of. It's weird because like the loudest fans are like the people that disagree are the loudest fans. Most negative fans are the loudest. So I don't know if it's true 50-50 split that people want him gone, but I think there's a
good chunk of people that would probably.
I still think the majority likes him. So
yeah, I would say you're at about a 60-40, 70.
I think of
30,
Lindy, it's
like
more
that.
of a 75-25 because there's 25% people that just don't like Lindy and don't.
25% of people who are afraid it's a nostalgia move and it's not going to do so. Like it's not.
all those
Lindy?
all those comments. You see the Sabres had like a social media thing where like Lindy was on the phone with season ticket holders.
Yeah, season ticket holders. Can you imagine what the ones they didn't put on there, like the bad ones, said to him?
Or the
No, it wasn't worth my money for last season's season tickets. No, I don't want to renew. Like, that's where I would be.
They could go in the archives and see if they could pop my dad's old number up and call him.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Going on, I think the player. I think it's hard to. It's a little hard to compare player to player, like from team to team. So I think this will split the.
Yeah, because you can't
split
compare football players to hockey players.
So I think it's a little different. But who do you think is under the most pressure? Do you want to go Sabres first, or do you want to go Bills first?
Bills first, and I have two that are under the most pressure.
You start.
Vaughn and Knox.
Who's under more pressure?
Yeah, who out of the two? They both took pay cuts to be there.
Yeah, that's a damn good question.
Yeah.
I don't really have a.
And Von Miller is all incentive based, and Knox needs to prove that it was a wrist injury. And if either of them don't, they're gonna walk. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think it's challenging, because I think you.
It's a tough one. I think Von Miller is a little more. Because Knox is a serviceable blocking tight end as well. He might have a place.
The problem with this, I guess, what makes it difficult is Knox is, I'm going to guesstimate his age, but 27 or whatever.
He's in his late 20s.
35, 36. Von's pretty much done if this doesn't work out. Like, maybe someone picks him up on, like, one of those one-year deals at, like, all those like Julius Peppers and all those guys.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of their careers, Reggie White, like, Bruce Smith, heck, went to the Redskins.
Yeah.
Could he bounce around? Sure.
Knox has more of a chance to land somewhere after.
I think Knox is under more pressure than Von
because of the Kincaid emergence and
well,
things along
I just
those
think
lines.
Kincaid's going to emerge as the tight end 1, and that's a lot of money to play your tight end 2, so I think he's more likely to get the boot than Von. I don't know. I think they're both kind of pretty much – I think they're both out right now. Next year, like I think both of them are like
both of them are kind of on the way out. You think
kind of on the 55-45 you're out, and if you play well you're in. They got to play themselves in. So I think they both have a lot of pressure. Von, if he's content
with taking maybe another pay cut or something.
Well, no, but Von's already won 2 Super Bowls. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, as you said. I think Knox is under more pressure because if Knox doesn't play well again this year and is injured, he's probably out here. And you could probably I think you can make a case that he's a top 32 tight end. So I think you can make a case he's a starting caliber tight end, but then who's going to pay him the money that the Bills are paying him? So he's probably going to – I mean, look at Logan Thomas. He was a solid tight end for the football team and the Commanders. He just signed pretty cheaply to be the backup tight end for George Kittle.
Right.
And I think – I don't know. But with the market kind of swing so heavily to wide receivers, like I think it'll be hard for tight ends to get paid.
Especially receiving tight ends. They're going to put their money into the wide receivers.
Especially receiving tight ends that have had drop issues in the past, had a down year, and if he has another down year, like I think he's under a lot of pressure to perform because if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to get a long-term extension. I think he's going to be like Von and have to take a 1-year prove-it deal. I don't know who's going to pay him.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Even though I think he's a starting caliber tight end, I don't know who's going to pay him that kind of money.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about it age-wise. I was more
well.
Along
Also,
the lines
if you think of it as well, like. I'm just trying to think like Pat Fryermuth is kind of a solid tight end. Like he's kind of in that range. Like I just think those tight ends are kind of replaceable.
Gesicki, he's one of those.
Gesicki bounced around.
Yeah,
exactly. Gesicki was pretty good. Had that one down year in Miami.
And then
under
was
McDaniel,
on the Patriots.
Under the Patriots. I'm blanking on what team he just signed with this year.
I'll find it.
It might be Cincinnati.
It might be. Yeah.
I think it is the Bengals. Irv Smith Jr. Like it's very hard for tight ends to kind of stick after their original team.
Number 88 on the Bengals, Mike Gesicki.
That was a good pull of mine.
Yeah,
I'll take that one.
There you go.
But yeah, I think Gesicki's a perfect example. Other than I think Knox is a better all-around tight end and maybe less receiver, but all-around tight end better.
Yeah.
But I think that's my point though, is that maybe he could stick as being an all-around tight end. But I think it'd be hard for him to get another payday if he doesn't perform this year.
It's a make or break for him. You're absolutely right.
Especially because I think. Brady kind of wants that 3 wide receiver, dominate the slot kind of thing, and having 2 tight ends kind of
tight end attack, baby,
muddies the water a little bit. So I would say Knox. I don't know. Would you say Von?
But again, when I said Von, I wasn't thinking about the age. Like
Von's not a bad pick though.
He's not a bad pick because I mean, they both
He
took
might be
pay
done,
cuts.
though. He might be done.
He might just retire. It might be over. Like,
but my point is this, too. I guess your point with Vaughn could be, like, he could be done if he doesn't perform.
yeah,
Knox,
he's not going anywhere else.
Knox still has, I think, enough credibility in the league where if he's bad this year, gets cut, he'll find another landing spot.
Right. He'll pop somewhere else.
But his career I think will never be the same.
No. And injuries have been the story with Dawson Knox. Even last season, you knew something was going on, and then you find out he's having wrist surgery a few games, and you're just like, okay, well, that explains. Because 2 seasons before, this guy was nabbing stuff out of the air. It wasn't even meant to be a pass, you know? So it's like, you're like, where did that guy go? If he plays like that again this season, he's on the team. He's going to continue to be on the team. He'll probably be tight end 2. But he's a very serviceable tight end 2 that has tight end 1 ability. And he's also marrying someone in Buffalo. Just want to point that out. Might be tied to the area a little more than you think, you know. So it's kind of where, you know, it's where I'm thinking. But yeah, Von Miller, he doesn't have a chance to go anywhere else. If he wants to play another season, it's going to have to be with the Bills, and he's going to have to do something.
Maybe,
this season.
yeah. What you got for
Sabres?
I thought you had another Bills one. You still had 2.
Those were the 2.
Oh,
yeah.
I understand.
Those were the 2. The 2 I had for the next one.
What
do you have for Sabres?
I have another Bills one.
Okay.
That we could do. Who do you think's under more pressure?
Oh God, I don't like the look. The look I just got.
Who do you think's under more pressure? Dalton Kincaid or Keon Coleman?
Oh man,
I know Keon Coleman's not a first round pick, but I was about to say that. But
he's the number
the
1
last
pick in the draft.
First picks for the Bills.
Mm-hmm. Could have been a first round pick, Keon. They just traded out.
All those targets now available. I mean, you have Diggs 150 off the book. Davis was getting 80 to 100. That's off the book.
Yeah.
I mean, you got. I know Sherfield and Hardy don't seem like they got a lot of targets, but those are 20-ish, 25 targets that are off the book as well. They tend to add up. You don't have they didn't get a guy that guarantees to take those. I mean, Curtis Samuel's going to get some of that work. I'm not saying,
but also
and
you have
gonna
one guy who's remaining on the team that's ever caught a pass from Allen in a game, and that's Khalil Shakir.
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver, yeah.
So who do you think's under more pressure this year to perform? Dalton Kincaid or Keon Coleman?
Yikes. That's a tough one. That's a good one.
I know. Thank you. I tried.
Kincaid's really, I think, towards the end of the season, shown what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Keon Coleman is the quote-unquote the guy they got to replace Diggs, right? Like, that's the narrative there.
Sure.
So that narrative, I think, drives him being a little more on the hot seat.
Pressure.
Yeah, under pressure. Because if he doesn't pan out, it also
that
is
room
like,
comes very thin very fast.
Yeah, it becomes very thin very fast. You're banking on him and his contested catches and being able to work on his separation a little bit. If he can't do that, you're kind of stuck at that point.
And also, if
Kincaid
has an up and down year, you might have Knox in the back pocket that
right.
can take that.
That's kind of, I feel like
positionally, like,
you have more depth at the tight end position, solid depth, than you do. You have more known depth, I should say.
Known quantities.
You know what you have as a backup in the tight end position.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you have other than Khalil Shakir in the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
So I think Coleman is a little more under pressure to really pan out right away. Because if he doesn't, you're like, oh shoot, like you have no idea what's about to happen. Because
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that one, but no, I think it's still Kincaid, and I go from this.
Okay.
I think Coleman was kind of is a raw prospect, has those physical traits.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even if he doesn't quite perform right off the bat, like I think it's more of him getting up to speed, and him. I think you could still figure a way to get the ball in his hands and get that athleticism in open space. And I think you have enough guys in the receiver room, that can kind of get a slow start from Coleman, kind of keep it afloat a little bit after signing MVS. I think the big thing and the big difference is Kincaid is the one guy in either room, if you take the whole rooms together, that is just in that tier of special.
Mm-hmm. Right?
He's the one guy that's special. Everyone else, like you could say, Khalil Shakir solid, like Curtis Samuel solid. Keon Coleman might have the potential to be a really good starter, but like there's only one guy in the room that has special potential, and that's Kincaid. And I think he's under a lot of pressure because he, as you know, he's a known quantity. He has the experience of Josh Allen. Him, Knox, Khalil Shakir. I'm not really counting Quentin Moore. So like the three guys, other than not count the running backs right now, that are the pass catchers that have experience with Josh Allen.
Yeah,
like he's under a lot of pressure to perform right away. Like Coleman can start off slow, have a slow first month or two, and then come on at the end of the year, and that's fine. Kincaid, if he starts slow, the narrative, especially in the fantasy market, everyone's like, oh my God, he's overpriced or whatever. Like, I think a lot of people are driving that narrative. So I think he's under a lot of pressure to perform because he's the special in the group. He's the special. And if he performs and plays well, it adds an element to the offense that they've never had in the Josh Allen era. And I think it will help mitigate maybe the lack of high-end talent in the wide receiver room. So I think it's
I like that.
Kincaid.
No,
Thank you.
I like the different because both arguments are
Sound.
Like you could see both sides. I can agree with yours as well. Like it's just you look at the Bills' offense. You just got one big question mark staring you back in
and
the
he
face.
was the guy that they picked.
Yeah.
Right. Like he Coleman is the guy that they all year. We said wide receiver, regardless if Diggs stayed on the team.
Right.
Regardless if Diggs stayed on the team, or really regardless if they kept Davis.
Mm-hmm.
People were still
the train was still people wanted the train, and one passenger car just rolled up, and it was Keon Coleman. He was on the one little car that like you got to pump. You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about.
Like the seesaw pump.
I've watched Thomas the Tank Engine.
Goated. That's all I have to say. Goated. With that, then we might have to get into Thomas the Tank Engine one time. Percy and Friends. Thomas and Friends. Who's your favorite?
They ruined that show though.
They did. They made it animated. It was so much better with real trains, like the mini ones.
Yeah. Oh, Thomas.
Yeah.
That was an OG guy.
Every episode's on YouTube, by the way.
His color was awesome.
The blue, yeah. Every episode's on YouTube, by the way, for free. My younger sisters enjoy it. Anyway.
Should we go to the Sabres?
Yeah, let's go to
the
Sabres.
Segue.
Yeah, what a segue. Thomas the Train into the Sabres. Thomas the Tank
Do you have
Engine.
one, or do you want me to go first?
You can go first. This team, I just don't know what to think.
So, I think...
Is the whole team under pressure? Yes.
Yeah, this is where it gets difficult because it's like whose case is. I'll say.
Every person regressed. I feel like all the big players regressed.
I feel like this question though has an easy answer though. I don't really like it.
Just ask it.
I'll say it. Actually, I'll say it because I think I can make a case for another guy if you pick him. So I'll do it. Dylan Cousins or Bowen Byram, who's under more pressure?
Bowen Byram showed out on the Sabres. He was a big addition to their defense.
Wasn't great though.
Wasn't great.
Wasn't really actually good. He was pretty bad.
He was serviceable.
He was bad.
Serviceable.
He was Jordan Greenway of last year.
Right. But he showed promise at the same time, even though he was bad. Like, you know what he can grow into. He
showed flashes.
He had a couple splash plays that you're like, okay, like we can get back to that Stanley Cup final he played in where he played the best hockey of his career. Cousins is under more pressure after his performance at the Worlds. He didn't do that all season.
Yeah, but you think he's under more pressure because he just did that?
I think so. People are going to be expecting that. The fans will be expecting him to play like he did, and with a new coach, expecting him to unleash that every game. And Cousins, especially, he got his money, right? The year after he gets his money, he takes his shit and just, he wears the bubble for half the season. And now you're like, okay, where's the Dylan Cousins we know? We see him in the postseason, the offseason, really. But at the Worlds, looking like Dylan Cousins. If he doesn't do that on the Sabres next year, there's going to be some questions.
Some demands.
Yeah. Where Bo Byram is a trade, yeah, you're expecting a return out of him. You saw flashes, and who knows? It's more of an unknown with him. He might pan out, he might not. But you're selling high on Middlestat for him and looking to just add depth to your defense. This is your star player in Dylan Cousins that you paid big money to. If he doesn't pan out the way you want him to, he's more under pressure to me than Bo Byram.
I think it's an interesting debate because I think team-wise they really need Cousins to bounce back because he's the second-line center. They paid him, $7+ million. They really need him to bounce back in a big way. So I could see where you're talking there. Just team-wise, they need him to bounce back because if he doesn't, that's a huge salary that they'd have to figure out.
It's like a Jeff Skinner salary.
Yeah, they'd have to figure. I don't think he'd bounce. I don't think he'd be that bad, but I do think you wouldn't get surplus value with that contract. And you don't really have guys. I know they have a lot of prospects, but those guys aren't ready to come in and score 30 goals and get 60 points in the NHL right away. I mean, we saw J.J. Peterka just now in year 2 kind of hit that figure, and he's been a pretty good prospect at every level. So, but for me, I think the answer is easily Byram, and I say that because on a personal level, you alluded to it when you're talking about Cousins. Cousins has gotten paid. Like he's good. He's got 6 years, $7 million per. Bowen Byram is a restricted free agent after next season. Like he needs another contract, and it's not guaranteed that the Sabres are going to be the team to give him that contract, right? And yes, he had flashes, but he was also pretty poor, especially defensively. So, is that, we saw the first couple of games some flashes, and then it was kind of bleak for the last month, and maybe that was, overcoaching and hesitation now leading into some of his problems. But I think he's probably the number one question mark on the entire team. Just seeing that you settled high on Middlestat, a guy that would have been is a solid second line center on a good team, and having him as your third line center was a massive, plus. I know you're gonna have to give him a contract this offseason, so they kind of pushed that can down the road with the Byram. But
yeah,
I don't know. I just think Byram, if he doesn't, the only thing I'll say though, if he doesn't hit, they could flip him. Now, could they flip him for a guy of Middlestat's value? I'm not too sure. I do think he has value as being a guy that was a former top 5 pick, is a guy that was the second best defenseman on a team that's won the cup within the last 5 years. I mean, on that Colorado team. So I think if he stays healthy and he has a good year, is going to be massive for the Sabres' future. So I think Byram's under the most pressure because he doesn't have a contract to lean back on. At least Cousins, if he does another middling season, at least he has $7 million in the bank next season after that. Bowen Byram, nothing hidden in the bank. He's got to get a new contract.
Yeah.
I just think contract-wise, it's just a complete, massive pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Team-wise, as an organization, it's easily, I think,
Cousins,
because if he doesn't come out, then it's like, all right, at least like if Byram doesn't do well, we could flip him and maybe get something back in returns. Cousins, it might be hard to move, and you really need him to be the second line center. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. From a contractual standpoint, it is Byram, but from a team standpoint, it's Cousins. It's the dynamics of both teams are very interesting this offseason because, under pressure, everyone I feel like is under pressure in some way because you're at the point now where both teams have to make something happen at some point. And like we said in the beginning,
I got one more. If you got,
yeah,
you got one more?
I
got it.
I have one.
Okay, shoot.
Tage Thompson, or maybe it's just Tage Thompson. I don't know if I have a comparison. Why I don't have another one. I'm gonna be honest with you. No, you can go ahead. I'll think. I'll add to it.
I'll just give a goalie one.
Oh, okay.
UPL or Devin Levi. I think UPL. Now we'll see what kind of contract he gets in arbitration. It doesn't seem like he views the Sabres as a very favorable organization. It kind of seems that there's some bad blood between those sides. So I think this could be a nasty arbitration case that I don't know if they get a long-term contract on. And I think him playing a long-term contract could lead to a lot of pressure. Now, I think there's a lot of pressure on Devin Levi because if they commit long-term to UPL, then where does that leave Levi?
Yeah.
This is a guy that made it very clear when signing here that he wanted to get in the NHL right away. Like, that was kind of the negotiations between the two sides. And now that, he had a little bit of taste, struggled a little bit, he had a really good year in the AHL, was solid in those, spot starts down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
UPL probably doesn't want to be playing 30 straight games on a 1-year contract.
No, he's gonna want to have the money in his pocket and the knowledge down the road.
Who do you think's under the most pressure?
It's tough because
it's a little unknown right now because you don't know the contract situation of UPL, but
right. But still, Levi, it's interesting because you just don't know with him. Because you're right, he did want to play in the NHL right away, and he's been playing well in the AHL. But if UPL, the first thing Lindy said when he asked who the goalie was going to be, he said, "I have 3 letters for you, UPL." If that doesn't show he knows what he's doing and
he's the crease.
Yeah, where he's going. And he's not going to do what he did last season. You're absolutely right. He's not going to play 30 games in a row or whatever, right? And not have a long-term deal. He's not going to do that on a one-year deal. It's gonna. I think
it's hard.
It's so
tough.
It's a tough
question
because
I think Levi.
You make a case for both.
Levi's under pressure because the crease is starting to not become his anymore, and it's become a fight. UPL is kind of trying to hold off this young guy while also trying to get a long-term contract. I think it depends. We could probably table this debate and wait till he gets his contract signed, because I think if UPL gets a long-term contract, Levi.
Mm-hmm.
Because
100%.
They paid UPL. Where does that leave you? If he gets kind of bridged or it goes to arbitration, it kind of now shifts to kind of 50-50, or it shifts a little bit more towards UPL, because UPL, you're older, you still don't have a long-term contract. Now the questions remain, can he replicate what he did last year? Like, if he doesn't, Levi shines, is he the guy out of the crease? Like, I think it matters what the Sabres well, I guess the question after this would be, what would you do if you the Sabres? Would you sign him to a long-term deal, or would you bridge him? 'Cause I think I would bridge him, because
he's been so inconsistent.
You know, he has an injury history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of have a guy on a backup plan B plan. I don't know. I don't know if I would commit 7x7. Like, I think that's his asking price. I don't think I would pay him. So if he's bad next year, and last year was, just an out of non-linear year, like, you're kind of screwed yourself at that point.
Yeah.
And it's hard to move goalie contracts.
It is, and you're at the whole thing about him being consistent is the problem.
I think I would wait.
I would bridge him. I think the same thing. He's consistently inconsistent.
Now, if you
last season was his best season.
If you bridge him, though, you give up your entire leverage if he plays well. Like, if he plays well on the bridge, like, it's the same Ryan situation where you give up your entire leverage, and you probably have to trade him or sign him to whatever contract he has.
Yeah, he has the.
And if Levi then craps the bed, then you're kind of like, well, we had to give him the $9 million. Then we had to give him the $10 million, Bobrovsky contract.
Yeah,
it's a gamble, but I think I would gamble.
He's gonna have you under his thumb.
Mm-hmm.
It is a gamble.
You do
no,
like
I'd
gamble.
splash the pot. Let's go.
Yeah.
We bridge UPL and go from there. He's been your most. Even though he's inconsistent last season, he was your guy.
Yeah.
And he showed up after the first few months of the season. He really was. I was like, oh, we have a goalie. Like, this is crazy. Like, I was not expecting that to happen. And I think you do take the gamble on it. You go. I can't think of anyone else to compare with Tage Thompson. I think both him and Tuck are very much under pressure.
Sure. I think Samuelson's under a ton of pressure. Yeah. Krebs under a ton of pressure.
The forwards in general, I think, are under a ton of pressure because they've regressed so much last season.
You can say anyone. It's just tough to come with a comparison because who's under more pressure. But
right.
I think that does it for
that.
I think we have our little.
Yeah, you got a hot take today?
I do have a hot take.
So is it High School Musical again, or what are we doing?
We did talk to another person that was in musicals, my brother Patrick, and he did say that High School Musical is not a sports movie. So it's a tough sight for you.
It's okay. Listen, there have been many conversations, and we're getting mixed reviews here. We don't know.
But no, my hot take is this. I saw this on Twitter the other day of someone complaining that Sports Center doesn't show. It's not the old Sports Center. With highlights. How you used to wake up on Saturday morning. Or Monday morning after the Sunday football games, and it would just be straight highlights of the football games previously. I have a lot of memories of waking up early on those days, seeing my dad on the treadmill in the basement, and me and him sitting down on the couch watching them. People are complaining about Sports Center, whatever. I'll just say this: I don't really think it's ESPN's fault that this has stopped. I think if you're gonna blame anything, you should just blame social media.
Yeah, because the highlights are out the night of.
Because what happens pretty much if in the hour after the last play of the game happens, there is a 12 to 15 minute highlight video
from the game.
So what the hell's the point of
you have two highlighting each team? Pretty much.
But at the same time, it's like, what is the point of me waiting till 8 a.m. if I can at 5 o'clock just sit down? Or also, it's the fact of this. Social media also, I could pretty much see what's going on every game.
Seconds after.
Red zone, I could see every touchdown the second it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all I'm saying is that, there's a lot of stuff to shoot on ESPN for, and I do miss old Sports Center. But, the fact that, people are just don't see the irony that it's like, dude, social media has killed that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. If I know a highlight's coming, I look on Twitter. It's there in 2 seconds. I don't have to wake up early and watch Sports Center. And the next day, you're right. There is a 15-minute video just highlighting the entire game, the big plays. It's like in Madden, you can play the big moments.
Yes.
That's exactly what they do.
Also, it's like, I'll say this. As a kid, the newspaper now is too slow. Like
well, newspapers in general. Are
well,
just
I used to wake
Buffalo
up.
News is the Cleveland Tribune now.
I
so.
used to wake up every day and read the sports page.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to do that because I can just go on my phone and look at articles from any source I want
Yeah.
and get opinions that are interesting. Like you don't find like us, like content creators. But like
The next day when we did the pods right after the Sunday football games, we had the highlights ready to roll in 2 seconds.
That's all I'm saying is that like I think I miss old ESPN, sure. But I also think that
it's the sign of the times.
you have to evolve, and
yeah.
like I'm sorry, but none of us have the want to sit down at 8 a.m. and watch that. Like we could go on our phones and like be doing other crap than sitting down on a TV.
And they post it.
It's a different world.
They also post SportsCenter on Twitter.
Yes, it's a different world. It's
the
a
top
different
10. That's where I saw Micah Hyde's play in the softball game pop up on Twitter, on SportsCenter. I don't need to sit and have cable to see it anymore.
So is it nostalgia? Yeah, I do kind of miss old SportsCenter, but like I understand why it's not around anymore and why it's changed.
I don't think that's too much of a hot take. I think
it's pretty hot. I think most people would be pretty pissed that I think.
Oh, I agree with you.
What?
Yeah, we're talking.
I don't know.
What demographic are you talking about?
But I don't think it's just old people. I think it's people like our age. Like the old SportsCenter was around when we were kids. That's I was 8 or 9. Like I think some people miss that nostalgia of doing that. Yeah. And it was iconic, and it was a good run. But like, that was a good impression.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my hot take.
Yeah. I agree with you though.
Thank you.
They change with the times. It's just things evolve. They happen. Look at the game of football. Kickoff will never be the same, and that people are gonna miss that.
And you know what? No one's gonna remember that in 20 years.
No. I mean, we will.
Yeah.
But like, this sounds interesting. Like, I'm not fretting.
It's like how the goalposts used to be in the middle of the end zone.
Yeah, and they used to kick. They used to kick from the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
Now it's the 25.
Yeah. Once they. Yeah. No one talks about that anymore.
Yeah.
No one cares about that anymore.
I remember sitting there in 8th grade tech, people talking about it like it was this travesty, and that when it happened, no one cared.
Yeah, because you know why? The kickers adjusted, and they started making them again.
Yeah.
Now that just whatever.
It'll happen with SportsCenter too. You know what? We're getting basically cable plus with these bundles you can get now, so it might come back. We don't know. It's just it changed with the social media of the times. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by Dom Laws. Thank you to our producer Mooch. Everything you do behind the scenes here. We also have a visitor in studio. I don't know if he wants me to call him out here, but the other Lost triplet that is not involved directly with this show, Chunk, Patrick Loss. I should have said Chunk. Sorry, buddy. That's gonna do it. Dom, how do we always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills. Press.